When I first told you about my reconstruction that I was working on, I did one in preparation for last week's presentation, but it was very loose. Like it was like
Yeah,
I took the summary of like the official summary from the scholars and I basically elaborated on it, but that wasn't as scientific as it should be.
you got to do it
So
times, different drafts of it until you get it cleaned up the way you like it.
yeah,
Sure.
so I decided to work on it again, doing it much more accurately, like actually trying to align it with the fragments. And you know how I often do it, I postpone it to the end, where like, procrastination, right to the end. So I started working on it this morning. So everything I'm going to show you right now is what I just did today. I didn't even work on it earlier in the week. So I wasn't able to finish the whole thing, but I got through probably either half of it or two-thirds of it, but I got through the bulk of it. So I'm going to be reading through at least that part that I've finished, and then we can decide if whether I will just do a summary that how I said my first reconstruction.
You can finish it up another time.
Yeah, and we could always, yeah, we could do that too. So I'm gonna, what I think, what I would like to do is, you know how last time I read the summary,
Hmm.
I'm going to read like sections of the summary, and then I'm going to read the corresponding part of my reconstruction, so you can see how the summary fits what I've reconstructed, and you can kind of do a comparison for that.
That'd be interesting.
Um, Yeah, so and again, this book, I mentioned it last time, but this is the book I'm reading the summary from, Old Testament Pseudepigrapha, More Non-Canonical Scriptures, Volume 2. And so this is they actually Ted Urho is the scholar who is going to be producing the full English translation of the Ethiopian text. He produced a summary for the scholars. So the summary is directly from him. So he had direct access to the whole book. So we can take that summary and have confidence that that is the correct story, but a condensed version of it. So taking that official summary, comparing it with my reconstruction, I use the fragments that we have, Greek. I will say that earlier editions, like the one that I sent you an email, Jackson,
Hmm.
that has like little fragments here and there. Compared to what's in this book, the English translations are quite different. So it seems like the that particular book has a lot of inaccuracies because you know how scholars tried to fill in like sort of like what I'm
Oh,
doing.
oh yeah, I do it too. But we try to
Yeah,
be as
so
possible, sure.
yeah, but they went with what they had and they didn't have a lot at the time. So because of that, it was a lot, there's a lot of inaccuracies with it. But using the summary and the fragments we have, we can make a much more accurate reconstruction.
And did they try to fill in every vacat there? Every hole in it? Did they try to fill in everything by, say, looking at how many rows were gone, or if a column was gone, they had to fill in a whole column, or pretty
Uh,
much?
for the most part, they did not do that. They
Uh-huh.
actually, what they did was they would fill in like ending words and beginning words of what survived. Let's say there's a middle of a sentence. They might try to fill in the first part of the sentence or the last part, but they don't try to fill out the whole thing.
Okay.
So in some ways that's good because, they're not doing it very accurately. But what I'm doing today, or what I did today earlier, was a full reconstruction, an attempt of a full reconstruction of everything, even, every single space. So some of it, especially later on, is more speculative, but you're
Mhm.
going to see that.
Sometimes
So
But the Spirit will give you those vakat. It'll give you those things if you are tuned in. Happened once in a while to me, but I think that I think you've got to be serious about it, like you are, not just, well, I'm going to do this now, make me some money. So,
Yeah.
yeah, really, I think you need to be very prayerful and serious about it. Now, what was the name? There's so many books on Apocrypha out these days. Who's the publisher of that second volume that you were talking about?
This one is by James Davila and Richard Backham.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
they did volume one as well. So
Mhm.
this was the one that it was 10 years ago that they did volume one, and we've been waiting for this. They finally published it, but it's very like low quality overall. But the most important part about this is they published the only known summary that's been published. There's no other summary that's been published by anyone else of the full complete text. So
The
this is
reason
pretty
they did that,
significant.
so you can buy one. So we can buy those. They make them cheap, but they put the original text in there, and those guys are great.
Yeah, they do a good job of for the when you say those guys, are you talking about the scholars or who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Balcom and Davila. I read their essays for years. I don't know, is Balcom still alive?
Um, I'm guessing so because he's listed as the one of the editors, but the James Davila, I follow his blog, Paleo Judaica,
Hmm.
and he posts on it all the time and some really amazing cool stories about that are relevant to the to our faith, the Dead Sea Scrolls, Old Testament, New Testament. So it's very interesting what he has to offer. He's not I don't know if he's an actual believer, but he's very much interested in the in Judaism, Christianity, and
Oh, yeah.
biblical context in general.
He's done a lot with the historic Jesus too back in the day, but his books are still selling like crazy. Here, take a look at this. Let me put it up here real quick.
I will say though, while you're doing that, James Davila, who did this, uh, he has retired this year from his he was a professor, and
Hmm.
this year he's retiring from his work. So I don't know if that means he's not going to be uh doing scholarly stuff anymore, or if he's still going to be publishing stuff. So it's possible this might be his last work because
Well,
he
that's
has
good.
retired.
See, those guys are editors, but these have 23 scholars in here contributing to this book. And look at this, 45%.
Ah, I think I paid $90. I think I
Yeah.
paid the full.
And you got the first one too?
I actually got it before, like you see how it says April 24th?
Yeah.
I actually bought it earlier and I got it probably a week before that.
Okay.
So, which is
Mhm.
kind of it kind of annoys me that it was half off uh
Mhm.
right now, but that's okay. I think it's Amazon Prime Day, so I think that's why something along those lines. But oh well, at
And it's
least the month.
you got a new one for 49, and down here, even a used one. I always buy stuff used because I don't have that much money, but it's the same thing used. Well, that's a real deal.
Yeah.
Oh,
So with that said, how about we get started? And what I'll probably do is I'll just keep the screen shared at
all right.
while I'll be reading from this book, but also reading back and forth from the reconstruction. So I'm just going to leave the screen shared for the reconstruction. The I know you had wanted me to send you the reconstruction, but
Whenever.
I hadn't finished it yet. But when I do finish it, I will send you the finished version. But
Okay.
let's screen share it now. One sec
Who's
while I
Taylor? Taylor here? Is that
she's
Elizabeth?
she's no.
Hi, Taylor.
She's she's just listening in. I think she's busy right now, but she's definitely listening.
Okay, I got to tell you, I've got the flu tonight. came down on me this morning. So if you call out for me and I'm asleep or something, don't think anything of it. All right?
Well, you know what? If you end up passing out and dying, we'll just we'll summon your spirit and bring you back and we'll have a conversation with you.
That'd be fine. Sure. I'm sure I'll
Yeah.
have more knowledge then.
And then that'll really bring forth the power of this book, you know?
Okay.
But of course I'm just joking everybody. But
Sure. And let me introduce to you Andrew Ounieh Carlson, a good old friend of mine and a very, well, what would we call you? A savant almost. You haven't had a lot of formal education in this stuff, but man, you know it very well. And you're very privileged here to listen to this video here, so pay attention. Amen.
thank you very much, brother.
Welcome.
So now let's share it. Second here. All right, so can you see this okay? I'm going to try to zoom this in.
Yeah, zoom it in about 200%.
Hopefully that's going to be, is that good enough or is that still too far
200%
out?
at least.
Okay, so I'm going to read each like I said, each corresponding section. So the first part of the summary says, entitled The Book of Janus and Jambres, the text opens by introducing the first of the two brothers, a man beloved by Pharaoh because of his great wisdom. The narrative immediately shifts to a terrifying dream seen by the brother's mother concerning a large city and many trees, one of which is felled by a man with an iron saw. Upon the dream being recounted to him, Janus sends his mother back to her house, telling her not to visit him any more and describing for her the special characteristics of human-like phantoms. He then summons his brother Jambres and outlines for him both the dream and its interpretation, which foretells his own death 3 years in the future in a simultaneous calamity for Egypt. So that's the first summary paragraph. Now let's compare it with the reconstruction. So just so you know, the bold and underlined words are what's actually in fragments. Anything that's not bold and underlined is my reconstruction using the summary and overall context. So we shall read. In Memphis, in the time of King Pharaoh, there lived a beautiful young woman who was an intimate friend of the king, and she dwelt in the royal house with the king. And while she lived there, she became mother to two sons. The one son was Janus, and the other son was Jambres. The mother left with her two sons and dwelt in her own house outside the city. And her son Janus became full of wisdom and was beloved by Pharaoh, and dwelt in Memphis and planted a garden. One night, while she was visiting her son Janus, she had a terrifying dream. And she woke up in a fright and called her son Janus over to her and said to him, I have seen a terrifying dream. Listen to the dream and provide for me the interpretation. I saw a large city with many trees in it, and I saw a man approach the city, and 4 obols were given to enter into the city. I saw that the man was full of stature, and with an iron saw was coming into the middle of the city, and that he came to a cypress, and he sawed it, and left 3 spans, and after the cypress fell down to the ground, the man took the stump and raised it up out of the earth. When the stump was removed, a thunderstorm came, causing many of the trees in the city to shake violently. And after 8 days, the cypress began to rot, and on the 14th day, the cypress was completely decayed, and a violent earthquake occurred, causing many of the trees in the city to fall down. Janus, hearing of the dream, became very disheartened, and seeing his mother in great distress, he asked her to go to her own place, instructing her not to visit him in Memphis any more, and that she should not tell anyone about the dream. And he said to her, do not return to me unless a phantom should appear to you and tell you to return. And she said to him, how shall I know if I have seen a phantom? And he said to her, many phantoms are manifested when there are many who have died. Their appearance is like humans. They have eyes and they do not see with their eyes. They have ears and they do not hear with their ears. They have a nose and they do not smell with their nose. They have a mouth and their mouth does not move. Their mouth is not seen speaking and their feet do not touch the ground. They leave no footprint and they leave no fingerprint. They are transparent and covered in a thin white fire that encompasses them. After he spoke this to her, she went away as he instructed her. And he sent word to his brother Jambres, summoning him in order to tell him about the dream. And seeing Jambres, he declared to him that he had sent his mother away and that she should not return any more to Memphis. And he told him that his mother had a dream and related the dream to him. And after telling him the dream, he told him its interpretation, saying, "The city is Memphis, and the trees are its nobles, and I am the cypress. And the man who wielded an iron saw is an angel of God. And as for him sawing the cypress, leaving only 3 spans, after 3 years I will die. But if I live during this critical time, I am blessed. But great torment will come to Egypt when I die." Okay, so that corresponds with the first paragraph that I read. So far, Jackson, any thoughts on the correspondence?
Well, I think what this is great, number one. Number two, I just had a little bit of a wonder to know what this one word means. I think is oboe. Is it a kind of a currency of some kind? You need to have
Yeah, I actually had to look that one up to see what does a oboe, and yeah, it's a currency. I can actually, or did you want to look it up quickly to see what it says? Um,
can't find it in the text now. How you spell it? Obol?
yeah, OBOL
Sure, let's look at it.
right here.
Bol. An obel is a term with multiple meanings primarily associated with ancient Greece. It refers to a small silver coin and a unit of weight, both equal to 1/6 of a drachma. It also refers to a coin placed in the mouth of a deceased person, known as Charon's obol, to pay the ferryman of the world. So I'm thinking that that's a few cents to get into town. And of course,
Now, what I
yeah,
would say is that as you can see, it just bold and underlined 4 obols. It's not clear the context of why it mentions the 4 obols, so I had to try to make sense of that. And so either had to pay to enter the city, or something on his person was worth 4 obols. Like maybe the iron saw was worth 4 obols. I'm not sure.
paying customs.
What was it?
Well, I'm thinking that's he's if he's carrying this big saw, that's maybe quite possibly what he's paying is a customs charge, customs tax.
And what's interesting is it's like when I was doing some contemplation on it, and I also sometimes ask ChatGPT for any insights, and it said something along the lines of that it was like uh, making the payment for justice, like a divine justice, where it's making the payment.
Okay.
And what was the other definition that you read
Well, let's
for
see.
oval?
I think I still have it here. A couple different coins. Well, there's a small silver coin, ancient Greek, very small, less than 1 gram. It was the fundamental denomination of Greek money system. Of course, at that time, Egypt was in the same system as Greece.
But there was another thing that mentioned about the dead, and that could be
Yeah,
related to this because this is all about the dead.
yeah. Sharon's or Charon's obol, evidently Charon is a deity. In Greek mythology, Charon was the ferryman who carried the souls of the dead across the river Styx to the underworld. So a coin, typically an obol, was placed in the mouth of the deceased as a payment to Charon for passage. This practice is the origin of the term Charon's obol, which is used to describe coins placed in the mouth of the dead. And let's use a couple other meanings here. Means any, it can refer to any low value coin. It's
But
also,
maybe it's connected to that whole thing about that deity or something
yeah.
because it's connected to the ferryman of the dead. So I found that an interesting coincidence.
Oh, of
But
course. course it
but I
is.
reconstructed it as entering into the city. So that part, if someone's skeptical of my reconstruction, you could say, well, maybe the four ovals were not specifically for entering the city.
Well, that
But I tried to make sense of it.
made perfect sense to me. Didn't have a question about it because if
Another, sorry, what did you say?
no, no, I'm just saying that I have read in other ancient literature that you had to pay to get in town and pay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, another thing that I reconstructed here, which could be questioned out of skepticism, is where it says a thin white fire that encompasses them. That was kind of my own intuition that I reconstructed here. For the person who just joined with the iPad, so the bold and underlined portions are what's actually in the fragments, and then what's not is my reconstruction to try to fill in the missing pieces. I used the summary, the official summary of the entire text published in this book by the scholars, and then I used the fragments, tried to combine them together to create a cohesive text. And so we were just talking about a couple things here that you could critique of my reconstruction. Now, this part right here where I have they leave no footprint and they leave no fingerprint. Actually, I think I forgot to I think that is actually in the fragment. Wait, no, it's not. Okay. It's
I
not.
can't
So
believe I can't believe you
the
did such a good job there in those places that there's nothing. You did a great job.
thank you.
I can't wait to see
The
what they come out with, the scholars come out with. I'm
Yeah, and
pro-
I would love to see the comparison between what I've done and how close it is to the actual text and where I went wrong, because that could give an indication of how accurate my work is or how inaccurate it is. So we will see.
okay.
The no footprint thing is related to some of the Apocrypha texts, which
Yeah.
mention that, like in the New Testament Apocrypha, they thought that they thought he was a ghost, Yeshua, when he resurrected.
Hmm.
But then Yeshua says, I am not a ghost, for look, you can see
Right.
my footprint. So I added that touch from the Apocrypha.
I think that was in, it was actually in the Gospel of John for a while, and they took it out. I'm not a bodiless demon. See that I'm not a bodiless demon.
I think that's in the Gospel of the Hebrews or something along
Yeah,
those lines.
I'm
Yeah.
one of those. Okay.
All right, so we'll go on now. The All right, so the second paragraph is there thereafter Janus has a great wall built around his garden and has filled it with plants, creating a delightful paradise that he is eager to share with the Egyptian nobles. However, a violent earthquake and thunderstorm uproot many trees, sending Janus running to his library for insight into this event. Finding an explanation in one of his books, he throws it away and orders his garden destroyed, rendering the formerly luscious area a desolate haunt of animals. After sending for Jambres, Janus falls asleep and has a vision of two men clothed in white, who declare that they have been sent by God to take him away to the place of the dead, ultimately stating that they will return to him in 14 days. Awakening, he starts weeping and tells Jambres the dream when he arrives. Janus then informs his mother that Pharaoh wants him to be the master magician in Memphis, and once again urges her not to visit him, making preparations instead for her well-being during his absence. So that's the second paragraph. And now we're going to look at the reconstruction that I did. So again, bold and underline is what's actually in the fragments. The other words are my reconstruction based on the summary I just read and the overall context. Then Janus told all the craftsmen, builders, and architects to build a wall around the garden, and when it was built, he left it in their care until he should return. He went to the house of Pharaoh and spoke to the sons of Pharaoh about the garden he planted. And they told their father, and Pharaoh summoned all the wise men and nobles of Memphis in order that they should enjoy the beauty of Janus's garden. And having convened the assembly, Janus spoke to the assembly, declaring his desire to show the wise men and nobles the beauty of the paradise he had built. And for 7 days he entertained in the garden all the wise men and nobles of Memphis. And seeing everything that he had planted in the garden was beautiful, and all of the planting was flourishing, the trees tall enough to be already providing shade, he was glad. And when evening came, he ordered the wise men and nobles to return to their homes. And while it was still evening, he laid under a certain apple tree. And while he was relaxing there, a great earthquake happened, and lightning from heaven brought forth thunder, so that some cypresses were uprooted from the garden. And Janus ran into the library where his powers were laid up. He consulted the books regarding this omen, looking through them to see if they provided any insight. And finding a book of omens, he opened it and read it. And it said in the book that the omen signified judgment from the gods against Egypt, and that in order to satisfy the gods, he must destroy whatever caused the omen. After he finished reading, he threw the book away, and he summoned the workers and commanded them to destroy the wall and to destroy the garden. And they destroyed the wall and the garden, leaving it desolate. The next day, it had become a haunt of wild animals. After this, Janus sent word to Jambres, summoning him to visit him. But after he sent word, Janus fell asleep and had a dream. Two men came over to him, and they were clothed in white garments, the two having a glorious bright light surrounding them. And they spoke to him and said, "The Lord of the earth himself and the overseer of all has sent us to lead you away to the grave. And you shall become thus a companion of corpses, and you will be destroyed forever." But taking pity, those two clad in white said, "Let us not take him away now, in order that the power of God might be seen. He will remain in his home for another 14 days, and then we will return and lead him away to the grave." And they spoke to him, saying, "God is displeased with your pride and arrogance. As the trees were cut down, so shall you and all the firstborn of Egypt be cut down. Set your house in order and settle your affairs. In 14 days we will return to you." He, when waking up, began to weep, and recalling the dream, he wrote it down in a book. And seeing Jambres come to his house, he told him about the dream he had. Let's see. What was the hold on a second. Yeah, so and together they left Memphis and visited their mother. And when they visited their mother, he said to her, "King Pharaoh has chosen me to be the chief magician over all the magicians in Memphis. Do not visit me until I return to you. Do not trouble yourself any more than about my affairs and well-being, mother, lest you become exasperated from worrying about me. I shall send to you daily so that I may know your affairs and you mine. I have also given orders to Jambres, my brother, to provide for you, caring for you faithfully." And he went up to her and kissed her, suppressing his tears. But when she had left, he let out tears like a river. And he sent out, begging all his friends to show care for his mother. Taking along his brother, he traveled to Memphis, taking with him the book. And he said to him, "Brother, I am passing on to you a document. Keep it secret, and take care not to come out on the day on which the kings and the nobles of Egypt come out to pursue the people of the Hebrews. Do not go along with them, but consider yourself sick and save your soul from death, and from the destruction of the Egyptians, which the God of heaven will carry out according to his word, on behalf of the children of the Hebrews, whom the Egyptians caused to perish in the river. And when the time of my death comes, go every day to our mother and send me letters, and when the 3 years are completed, tell her the king commanded him to remain for another 3 years, so that our mother will not go to Memphis and find out that I have died. But if she compels you to speak, say, he is unclean and cannot be seen until he is purified." Now you'll notice a huge chunk of this text is bold and underlined, and that's because we have two fragments in Greek of this section, and we also have an Ethiopian fragment that has this whole section. So that's why we can have this whole section here. So I didn't really have to reconstruct anything in this huge section because it's all preserved in the fragment. So far your thoughts, Jackson, on the correspondence for this in the second paragraph.
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed, really, because the first couple paragraphs, and now this big chunk of text that's there that isn't messed up, it all fits together so well so far. And I don't know how long this text is, what, several pages or 240?
Yes. So so right here you see this book.
Yeah.
So we've got this first section. So right now I read to you two paragraphs
Hmm.
from corresponding to the first two paragraphs of the summary. We basically have, let's see, I would say about 20% of the book we've just read.
Okay. So it might be, say, 6 or 8 pages long. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, again, everything's corresponding really well here. Surprise, surprise. So I suppose that when you got down to the part with a lot, with very few things missing, that you read that and had that pretty well in your mind before you went back up and went through it again and added the new material.
Well, so what I did, so actually all of this as I was saying earlier, all of this I did today, this morning till now, till around 8:25, I was working on it. And actually started in the afternoon.
Okay.
So I just basically started at the very beginning, and then when I got to this section, I just copied and pasted from the translation we had, and then I compared the Ethiopian fragment with the two Greek fragments, and I tried to make sense of the some of the variance between those fragments of
Right.
this long section right here. But yeah, this actually came later.
How do you compare two Greek texts? You doing better in Greek, or do you have two different Greek sources that,
That
or is it in English?
So in the PDF that I sent you, it has the two versions of the fragments, and I'm also using the English translation from Charlesworth because they produced one as well. I consulted that, but they only did a little bit in Charlesworth.
Okay.
The main publication before this one also publishes this one publishes all the fragments as well that they have access to. So I compared this translation to the Pietersma translation and the Charlesworth translation for that long section.
Okay.
All right, so with that said, I'll read the next section here. Janus and Jambres then set out together for Memphis during. Oh yeah, so I actually read part of what corresponds to the third paragraph, part of it. So Janus and Jambres then set out together for Memphis, during which time the former instructs the latter not to join Pharaoh and his posse when they pursue the Hebrews, and to keep news of his forthcoming death from their mother, enjoining secrecy on his brother in both matters. Sometime later, Janus throws a feast for the marriage of his brother and his daughter, at which he issues further instructions to Jambres for the well-being of his family after his demise, particularly for that of his mother. During this event, officials from Pharaoh arrive and demand that the master magician come and counter the miracles and signs performed by Moses and Aaron, which he does successfully. All right. So now let's compare.
Okay.
And sending word from Memphis, he convened all the nobles of Egypt and said to them, I am giving away my daughter to my brother in marriage, and I am celebrating the wedding for 7 days, and you will rejoice together with us, dear brothers. And after several days, I shall depart from you to the grave. And after making merry for the 7 days of the wedding, Janus instructed his brother Jambres concerning his children and concerning his wife and mother, not to neglect her nor to abandon her for 1 hour, so that she will not be pained, but to go to her every day. And Jambres said to Janus, I have taken up a position against the Hebrews. Oppose them in order that Egypt may be spared. And when he had finished speaking, ambassadors were present from the king, saying, Come quickly and oppose Moses the Hebrew, for he is making signs so that everyone is amazed. And Janus, having come to the king, opposed Moses and his brother Aaron, doing as many things as they were doing. But when his death neared, tormented by a painful ulcer and not finding a remedy, he sent word to the king, saying, This is the finger of God that is operating for them. Therefore, I, wishing to oppose the power of God, depart to death.
Hmm.
So we'll stop there. Now, a couple things about this particular paragraph that I do want to emphasize that's important to know. So you see this right here that's not bolded and underlined. So there's a few differences in the different versions that we have. The Ethiopian version does not have all of this. It only has part of this. So basically this part right here, actually we can look at it right now. Let's just go to this right here. Okay. Or actually, oh, I'm sorry. The Ethiopian has this, the Greek does not. So he speaks to the nobles, and then it says, and making merry during the 7 days of the wedding, Janus instructed Jambres about his children and about his wife and about his mother, that he should neither neglect nor abandon her, even 1 hour, lest she be grieved, and that he should visit her daily. Now that's not found in the Greek fragments. Hold on a second. Okay.
Iones, Iones.
All right, let me zoom in. So right here we have in marriage, and we celebrate the wedding for 7 days, all of us having a good time together, men and brothers. But after that, dot dot dot, I separated myself from the Hebrews, dot dot dot. And then the other version says, the other version actually doesn't have that corresponding section.
You've got the Greek in here. That's great.
Yeah, it has the Greek as well. And you can see sometimes when you look at the Greek versus what they have in the translation, they add things not like, and they don't
Oh,
even put
yeah.
brackets sometimes, even though they added it.
Trust me, I
Uh,
tell you.
Now this line right here, I separated myself from the Hebrews. That's not in the Ethiopian version. So this might be a fuller thing. So I tried to make sense of how do we incorporate that line? And in my summary here, so here's a problem with this text is Paul in the New Testament referencing this text refers to them by name, Janus and Jambres, but he says they opposed Moses. But in the current fragments and in the summary of the full text, it only mentions Janus uh, opposing Moses. So according to Paul, they both did. In Damascus document, it also says they both opposed Moses. So how do we make sense of this? In Janus and Jambres, the text here, only Janus is a magician. Jambres is not a magician. But in later traditions, like of the rabbinic traditions and by church fathers who are influenced by the rabbinic tradition, they believe that both Janus and Jambres were magicians. But when you actually look at this book, from what we have, including the summary, only Janus is the magician. So if only Janus opposed Moses as a magician, what role did Jambres have? And that's when I tried to incorporate the idea that Jambres encouraged him in some capacity. He encouraged his brother to oppose Moses. And this particular place would be the most fitting place for Jambres encouraging him to oppose Moses. And when you look at the text right here, you see dot dot dot, that means we're missing text. So it very well could have had a fuller text saying that Jambres was speaking to his brother and saying that so see where it says I separated myself? The other translation says I opposed or I took up position against. Now this has the singular. I took up position against a certain Hebrew. So there's some discrepancies in the translations by the scholars. So this one says, I separated myself from the Hebrews, plural.
Hmm.
The other has singular. But remember, I said that sometimes they don't even put brackets in this translation. So it might actually say Hebrew, singular, but they speculated that it's supposed to be plural.
Yeah, and most of those scribes in those days that could write that kind of Koine business Greek, they weren't real educated. I mean, they didn't know any English, right? You think
Oh,
those,
they did not know English. That's correct.
but I do a lot of translating every single day just for fun. I love to do it. And I just going through there are so many translation errors, just stuff that even I can pick out that going through. And I've been translating the Apocrypha, or I'm sorry, the Apocalypses and the Gospel of John, the Hebrew or John's words alone, and then all the five, six apocalypses. And I am finding so many errors in there, and it concerns me because actually, the last 2 days, I have been upset about these scriptures that are supposed to be canonical that are so poorly translated. In fact, some so wrong that it has affected 1,000 years doctrine. Oh, well, that's my problem.
Well, now what I would say is that when it comes to texts like the fragments of Genesis and Jambres and the Dead Sea Scrolls, translation is a lot less clear because sometimes you only have part of a word, so they fill in what they think the word is, and sometimes they fill it in wrong.
Yeah.
And other times we know what the word is, but we don't know the context. And especially in Hebrew, a word could mean very different things depending on context. So because of that, there can be really inaccurate renderings when we don't have the full context. But when you have the full text or a full sentence, it's a lot easier to translate it. So what you're referring to is for the inaccuracies in the translation, I would suggest that those are due to just bad translation methodology, but not like basically they knew what they were translating, but they just chose to translate it in a
Yeah.
more loose way.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I
for,
guess they had so much to do, they wanted to get it done with. I'm not going to stick around for these three letters. I think that probably has a lot. Man, I have had to go to great lengths just to translate little words like three letters with a couple of diacritical marks on them, and they're no place, and I'm just fumbling around until I find that. Compelled. Well, there I go again.
All right, so let's continue. Now we're getting close to the end of what I finished for today for reconstruction of like the meticulous reconstruction. And we are about to get to a part which I had the most difficulty on and which we could call most in the question. So far, I would say that my initial reconstruction is pretty solid from what I feel like.
Absolutely.
But once we get to this section here, I feel like my reconstruction is weaker because the fragments have less in them. And
Hmm.
the summary doesn't really elaborate as much on what was talked about. So I kind of had to use my intuition and the overall context to try to piece together what may have probably been said here. So when we see the official translation come out in a few years, hopefully, this probably will be the more likely to be inaccurate in my overall reconstruction. So first I'll read the summary from the scholars. Okay. Janus, however, is then struck by a terminal illness. When he is in the throes of death pains, his brother comes to him, and the two converse as the hours of the day slip away. At its end, Janus perishes, and in his immediate angst, Jambres attempts to commit suicide, an action halted by the timely intervention of the brothers' friends. Jambres then mourns for 7 days. Now, I only did the first half of that small little paragraph, but it's a couple paragraphs here in this document that I reconstructed. So I'll read it and then we can talk about it. And Janus called his brother again and entreated him concerning his mother not to pain her. Remember that in her life she endured giving birth to us, and let yourself neither accumulate wealth nor forget your mother, and prepare for my death. For now the breath is leaving my body, and I will not live much longer. My death you shall not deny, for today my fate has been sealed. I am approaching death, for I can only but breathe a little. And Jambres said to his brother, perhaps you will not die. Do not give up on life. And when he heard him say this, Janus sat up and looking at him said, such indeed is the hope of fools who are not righteous and are not mindful of the ways of God. Be mindful of God. God has shown me that the Hebrews will leave Egypt. Do not hold on to your riches, but you shall be giving to them all of your wealth. If you do this, God will have favor on you and show you mercy. Now ready yourself for the morrow, for there will be great weeping all throughout Egypt when all the firstborn of Egypt die tonight, and the people awake to find them dead. But the firstborn of the Hebrews will be spared, for the Passover, being observed by them, will protect them from the judgment of God. Such is the fate of those who obey God versus those who disobey God. After saying this, he asked, of what kind is the hour now, and when will the setting of the great star be? And he replied, it is the final hour of the day. And he said, such indeed is the hour of sinful and deceitful hearts, which do not remember the hour of death. And he said to him, come out and see how much is left of the day. And he said to him, none. And Janus said, so much indeed is the remainder of every woman who will turn away from the bed of her own husband and have intercourse with another, Jambres, my brother. Now my soul is destroyed, and my spirit is wasting away, and my whole body is disturbed. And when he said this, his brother Jambres gave him some food and water in order that he might have some strength. And Janus called out to his brother and made him swear an oath to take care of his mother and not tell her about his death, and to not pursue the Hebrews. And he said to him, do not forget the oaths which I made you swear. Do not forget your mother, and do not seek vengeance against the Hebrews. When he finished speaking, he refused to eat or drink anything further, and he took away the food and drink. And Janus, in distress, cried out in pain, and he said to his brother, the time of my death is nigh. Do not forget the things I have said to you. But Jambres refused to accept this, and he said to the servants, let many animals be brought to make an offering on behalf of my brother's life. Bring 100 beasts of burden, 100 goat kids, 100 sheep, 100 oxen, 100 donkeys, 100 horses, and 100 camels, and bring them back to this place. And as the servants gathered the animals, he held on to his brother as he was dying. And the servants gathered the animals and brought them back to Jambres. But when they returned with the animals, Janus died. Around this time there was a large tumult and noise throughout all of Egypt. And Janus cried out with a great cry, and he mourned intensely over the death of his brother. And after that, the Hebrews left Egypt, and the king with the nobles of Egypt rose up and went to pursue the people of the Hebrews, and they perished while pursuing them in the Red Sea. And when some of the survivors returned to Egypt, they told the people in Memphis that Pharaoh and all of Egypt died in the Red Sea. And the people, hearing this news, tore their clothes and put ashes on their head. And there was wailing and weeping throughout all of Egypt. So that's all I have so far for the reconstruction, for the meticulous reconstruction. Any thoughts, Jackson, on this reconstruction so far?
Hold on, hold on. I just think it's excellent. I mean, I'm a little biased, but this is
You're my friend, so you're biased.
well, yeah, that's it. Being somebody that does this every day, that for him to sit down at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and come up with that like that, in that case, in that short amount of time, hey, that would take me an entire week. I think I could do a good job, but In just one day, you must have a storybook mind where wonderful legends just roll out your ears.
Hopefully this is accurate or close to accurate though,
Yeah.
because obviously I don't want to mislead people. But that's why in my reconstructions I put footnotes and obviously this is an exercise because we know this is going to be published in a few years. So I wanted to test. This is a perfect example to test my abilities because we're going to get the full text and we can see how bad I do or how good I do and see what I had good insights on and what I had bad insights on. Now, it mentioned here about the 100 animals, 100 beasts of burden, 100. It said 100 kids, but I thought, you know what? Someone listening to this might think it's talking about human sacrifice. So I said goat
Oh,
kids, so
yeah.
people know that it's talking about goats and not kids. Um,
And
and
they're going
then
to sacrifice donkeys and
it's
cattle. Maybe they're Islam.
it didn't say sheep in the text and it didn't say horses, but what it had was missing, like it had missing words. So it seemed to imply that there was another animal mentioned there.
Maybe
So
not.
sheep, oh yeah, and oxen too. Oxen was not mentioned either. So I try to think, well, what are some biblical animals that are typically associated with domestication and sacrifice? Sheep and oxen were easy ones. Horses, not as much, but because they had donkeys and camels here, horses seem to be a plausible
Yeah, I see.
animal to mention. But it wasn't clear why these animals were being mentioned because Janus and Jambres were talking and Jambres is about to die. So was Jambres telling someone to gather animals, or was Janus saying to gather animals? I went with the idea, the interpretation that it was Jambres and not Janus who was saying to bring the animals. Because you have right here where it says, let's see. Now look at how, when you actually look in the fragmentary text, you see, all you see is for now the breath, dot, 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 and dot, 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 deny for today, dot, 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 breathe a little. Like it doesn't tell you how much space is missing. So I kind of had to guess the amount of space that's missing. But roughly you have lines, right? You have a line of text and there's like one word in the line. So overall, I feel like this reconstruction fits a general line length for the most part. Someone is denying something or being told don't deny something. And thought about this probably being referring to how Jambres was not ready to accept the death of his brother Janus, because in the summary of the scholars, it says after he died, he basically didn't want to live anymore and he was going to commit suicide. But his friends intervened and stopped him. So this shows a despairing Jambres, and he doesn't want to accept that his brother is about to die. And we have here, do not accumulate wealth. Down here it says giving to, but it's not clear who is giving to what or what's being given. So I tried to make sense of it, and I thought of in scripture where the Egyptians give things to the Hebrews. So that made me think, well, maybe he's saying, just as he said earlier, do not accumulate wealth, give away your riches. And actually, later on in the scholarly summary, it says again to give away your riches. So that would fit the idea that the Egyptians were giving away their riches to the Hebrews. And for the morrow, we know that in this book, we know that Janus dies the very moment that Passover is observed. So when it says for the morrow, this is the morning after the Passover is sacrificed. So what happens on the following morning? Well, all the firstborn of Egypt have died, and the Hebrews leave Egypt. That's when the Exodus happens, the following morning. So I put in the passage this concept that what's going to happen tomorrow. And then it says being observed. Well, what's being observed? I was trying to think what could possibly be referring to. And I thought, well, Passover was being observed, so maybe that is what it's talking about. And then here we have like almost like a parable thing of what kind is the hour now? And this said of what setting, the setting of the star, but there's a word missing. What star is it talking about? I tried to think what star could be referring to, and I remembered the word for star could also be luminary. So maybe it's just what the luminary, the setting of the luminary, and that's probably referring to the sun. Because the sun was about to set, and then Passover was gonna, they were gonna eat the Passover once the night. Once they sacrificed the Passover on the evening of the 14th, and then when the sun sets, that's when they eat the Passover between the evenings. So when he mentions here the setting of the star, of the blank star, I suspected that it's referring to the sun
Hey,
when
I
the
can't.
sun sets.
Can you put your cursor where that is? Because I'm not seeing where you're talking about.
Sorry, right here.
Oh, I was just above that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then we have he replied, but we don't have in the fragments what did he say back. But the overall thing here is what kind is the hour now? We know in the context that it's about to be the end of the day. It's very near the end of the day. And it also says in the summary, it says it says when he is in the throes of death pains, his brother comes to him and the two converse as the hours of the day slip away. So it's nearing the end of the day. It's right near the end of the day. And so it seems to be saying when he says, of what kind is the hour now? And the setting of the sun, he's saying it's the end of the day. So, as like a symbolism, he's saying when the sun sets, that's when the judgment comes. So, and you know, in the parable of Yeshua in the New Testament, when he says, for the parable of salvation, when everyone's paid a denarius for the work they do, some people are hired in the 11th hour, right near the very end. So I reconstructed what his response was because we don't have it in the fragments. I felt that it is the final hour of the day fits the context. And it was also, according to the fragments, it's a very short reply he had. So a very short reply from Jambres. What kind is the hour now? It's the final hour of the day. And then he says, such indeed is the hour of sinful and deceitful hearts, which do not remember the hour of death. Like kind of like where Yeshua says they'll be eating and drinking and giving in marriage, and they won't think about the judgment, but it'll come upon them, just like in the days of Noah. So here we have the sinners are just going about their business. The Egyptians didn't had no clue this was about to happen. They were eating and drinking and celebrating, enjoying life, not realizing that it was about their time of life was about to end. And then this says, come in and see how much is left of the day. And he said to him, none. Now this, it says, so much indeed is the remainder of every woman who will turn away from the bed of her own husband and have intercourse with another, Jambres, my brother. Now it doesn't say remainder. The word is missing. But yeah, I tried to
Mhm.
make sense of why is he talking about intercourse, adultery? It doesn't fit the context. So it seems like it's another parable thing. And it may be that he's saying, like, you know how the prophets use language about Israel forsaking God and going after other gods, and it compares us to adultery. Israel commits adultery against God and goes after other gods. So, in a similar way, Janus seems to be saying that the sinners are comparable to a woman who commits unfaithfulness against her husband. In the same way, sinners are unfaithful against towards God. And it mentions oaths, and I suspected that this was because Janus over and over again tells his brother, swear, or he doesn't say swear, but take care of our mother. Do not forsake her. Over and over again, it has that theme and emphasis. But yeah, so that's my reconstruction so far. The actual, the full-on reconstruction. Now, how much, let's see. It's been about an hour. So there is actually one other thing I can share that is a summary from Latin of, let's pull it up here.
That's all right. Then, oh shoot. Then. We can go maybe to next week, Tuesday night, and do the rest when you get it finished. Don't procrastinate now.
All
You're
right, let me
That's on the edge of our seats.
I'll just read this one little section, Jackson. It's not long. This is from a summary, okay? This is from a summary. It says, Mambris opened the, this is Jambres, opened the magical books of his brother Janus. He performed necromancy and brought up from the netherworld his brother's shade. The soul of Janus said in response, I, your brother, did not die unjustly, but indeed justly, and the judgment will go against me, since I was more clever than all clever magicians, and opposed the two brothers Moses and Aaron, who performed great signs and wonders. As a result, I died and was brought from among the living to the netherworld, where there is great burning and the pit of perdition, where no ascent is possible. Now then, brother Jambres, make sure do not do good in your life to your children and friends, for in the netherworld no good exists, only gloom and darkness. After you will have died and have come to the netherworld among the dead, your abode will be 2 cubits wide and 4 cubits long. So for next week, I'll try to reconstruct the rest of this, and we'll see if we can finish this.
Great. Hey, thank you, brother. Now we'll get this thing edited and get it up so other people can enjoy it. In the meantime, don't procrastinate.
All
Try to come back next Tuesday or whenever it is, whenever you're available. Okay? And thank
right,
you,
sounds good.
Taylor and iPad, who
Yes, I love iPad. That's
tonight.
wonderful name.
It sure is. Thanks for being with us. Okay,
Shalom,
y'all.
guys.